There is a strange and unsettling phenomenon that confronts many individuals who have aggressively pursued the traditional markers of success. The realization that achieving treasured goals does not necessarily bring inner transformation. People often imagine that reaching certain milestones will unlock stability, serenity, or self-understanding. Yet, when the moment arrives, it is frequently met not with illumination but with a quiet void, an indifference that seems almost cruel. This contradiction between outer accomplishment and inner stillness exposes a fundamental miscalculation embedded deep within cultural expectations. From childhood, most of us are conditioned to approach life as a staircase of victories. Education, society, and even family encourage the belief that the right sequence of achievements will carry us toward lasting happiness. The promotion, the new home, the status increase, the rise in recognition, all are presented as stepping stones to existential satisfaction. However, many discover that the fulfillment promised by these achievements evaporates quickly, replaced by a fresh wave of restlessness and a new target to chase. This cycle reveals a deeper psychological pattern, the belief that external progress can resolve internal disquiet. But this unease has little to do with the world outside. It arises instead from the tension between consciousness and the absurd nature of existence. Some philosophers, observing the human condition with a mixture of irony and tenderness, argue that our pursuits resemble a tragic performance in which everyone plays their assigned role while knowing, at some level, that the script lacks ultimate meaning. Modern society reinforces this performance with its relentless glorification of productivity. Busyness has become a status symbol, a shield against introspection. People fill their schedules so completely that they rarely encounter their own inner silence. Work, goals, and endless activities act as sophisticated forms of anesthesia, blocking out the uncomfortable truth that no accomplishment can fully address the existential questions that accompany being alive and self-aware. What we call emptiness, then, may not be a defect but a kind of clarity. There is honesty in boredom, restlessness, and post-achievement melancholy. These states expose the gap between outer striving and inner reality. They reveal that something essential within us cannot be fed by titles, possessions, or admiration. Rather than a disorder to be corrected, this discomfort can be understood as a manifestation of depth, a refusal of consciousness to accept simplistic narratives about success. Yet contemporary culture has little tolerance for such honesty. When someone admits to feeling unfulfilled despite worldly success, society often responds with suspicion or pathologization. Happiness has become a moral obligation, and enthusiasm a performance requirement. To express indifference toward achievements is viewed as abnormal, even ungrateful. But insisting that emotions must align with accomplishments only deepens the divide between one's public persona and private experience. Compounding the issue is the modern obsession with self-improvement. Entire industries thrive on the promise that optimizing habits, routines, or mindsets will eventually deliver personal transformation. But this promise rests on an illusion that the self is an unfinished product capable of reaching a final perfected state. The more individuals chase this perfected self, the more distant it becomes, because the pursuit itself is infinite. Optimization becomes another treadmill, a refined form of the same cycle that governs external achievements. Beneath the surface, the underlying void remains unchanged. There is also the existential loneliness that emerges once one realizes that the deeply inner aspects of human experience are ultimately inaccessible to others. One may have friends, partners, or admirers, yet still feel that a part of oneself remains untouched and untouchable. This isolation is not a social problem, but a structural feature of consciousness. It persists regardless of success or failure, and is not cured by achievement or companionship. To make matters even more paradoxical, success often tightens rather than loosens one's chains. The more a person accomplishes, the more they become responsible for maintaining their accomplishments. Each achievement expands the expectations of others and increases the pressure to sustain an image of competence. What was once pursued in the name of freedom gradually becomes a source of constraint. People become custodians of their reputation, carefully managing perceptions to avoid the risk of disappointing others or jeopardizing what they have built. Moreover, ambition constructs a cage disguised as opportunity. Early in life, one feels free to experiment, attempt new directions, or even fail. But with every step upward, the cost of change grows heavier. Choices made under youthful confidence become long-term commitments, closing off alternate futures. The older one becomes, the more difficult it is to imagine abandoning the identity shaped by these accumulated decisions. Thus, success subtly limits the very freedom it was supposed to create. Comparison intensifies this imprisonment. Individuals rarely evaluate their lives in isolation. Instead, they measure worth in relation to others. Someone else will always appear to be ahead, triggering further dissatisfaction. Even surpassing those once envied provides only momentary relief before new benchmarks emerge. The race has no finish line, yet one's value is constantly tied to the illusion of progress. Even family expectations contribute to this dynamic. People grow up believing their elders possess clarity and direction, only to reach adulthood and realize that those same elders were equally uncertain, equally searching. This recognition can be disorienting, leading to the unsettling question of whether anyone truly knows what they are doing, or whether everyone is simply following inherited scripts that no one fully understands. If success cannot deliver meaning, and retreat from the world offers no guarantee of peace either, what then remains? Perhaps the answer does not lie in achieving or in renouncing, but in seeing both with equal lucidity. Wisdom may consist not in escaping the paradox, but in enduring it gracefully. One can continue to pursue goals, but without expecting them to provide existential justification. One can appreciate comfort without mistaking it for salvation. One can work, achieve, and grow, while knowing that none of these pursuits touch the deepest mysteries of existence. This approach requires a subtle strength, the strength to act while recognizing the limits of action. It involves acknowledging that purpose may not be bestowed by achievements, but neither is the absence of purpose a reason to despair. Instead, one can cultivate a form of existential lightness, engaging with life not out of desperation for meaning, but out of simple participation in the flow of existence. Such clarity does not eliminate melancholy. In fact, melancholy may continue as a quiet companion, not as a flaw, but as a reminder of depth. It signals a mind unwilling to settle for superficial answers. In a culture addicted to forced positivity, this sobriety becomes a form of rebellion. To see life clearly and still choose to live it fully is perhaps the highest form of resilience. Ultimately, the task is not to eradicate the void, for the void is woven into the fabric of conscious existence. The task is to move through life without the constant need to transform every action into a grand narrative. Achievement can still have value, practical, emotional, creative, but it should not be burdened with the impossible expectation of resolving existential tension. The real victory is not conquering the external world, but understanding oneself deeply enough to no longer depend on external validation for wholeness. When one can pursue ambitions without being devoured by them, experience success without being imprisoned by it, and face the absurd without fleeing from it, then one has achieved a kind of quiet mastery that no promotion, possession, or applause can provide. In the end, perhaps the most profound act is simply to be present, to inhabit one's own life without performing it, to allow experiences to unfold without insisting they hold cosmic significance, to live with ambiguity rather than rushing to fill it, to stop waiting for life to make perfect sense and instead begin living it with sincerity, honesty, and a certain courageous acceptance. This is not a solution. It is not a cure. It is a stance, a way of holding oneself in a world that offers no final answers. And perhaps, in that stance, one discovers a freedom more genuine than any produced by achievement. The freedom to exist without needing to justify existence. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.